Good day. My name is Dr. Dion George, and I'm the South African Minister of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment. Since becoming the Minister in July 2024, I've immersed myself in understanding the complexities and interconnectedness of the vast portfolio of issues that we are mandated to resolve. Within this continuous process of learning and unlearning, I have firmly identified my big 6 strategic priorities, while also looking into how we can make the most sustainable impact. Engagement and communication are a key pillar to drive and support our strategic priorities. As such, I'm introducing my new YouTube environment series called The Minister's Couch. Here, I have important conversations with key local and international figures, focusing on environmental management, conservation and protection, with a view to elevate the most pressing environmental issues of our time. Welcome to the Minister's Couch.
South Africa has a rich and diverse marine environment with a coastline stretching over 2,800 kilometers, bordering both the Atlantic and Indian Oceans. This unique position places South Africa at the crossroads of 2 major ocean currents, the cold Benguela Current on the west coast and the warm Agulhas Current on the east coast, creating highly productive and biologically diverse marine ecosystems. As such, the government of South Africa has invested significant resources toward ocean research and to development with the view to bolster marine science, support sustainable ocean industries, and enhance climate resilience. We are aboard one of those investments today, the SA Agulhas II, which is a South African icebreaking polar supply and research vessel. Agulhas is primarily tasked with supporting research stations in Antarctica and on sub-Antarctic islands. It also serves as a research platform for oceanographic and biological studies, collecting data and samples for various scientific projects. Additionally, it fulfills a crucial role in deploying and collecting weather buoys as part of global weather prediction efforts. Today, the Minister of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment in South Africa, Dr. Dion George, is joined by Dr. Ashley Johnson, who is the Acting Chief Director of Ocean and Coastal Research, as well as Specialist Monitoring Services, including the Antarctic Program, as well as Ms. Judy Beaumont, Director at the International Ocean Institute of Southern Africa.
Good afternoon. My name is Judy Beaumont, and I'm the Director of the International Ocean Institute of Southern Africa. And I have the privilege to be here on the Minister's Couch in an episode entitled Uncharted Waters, Breaking Barriers Through Ocean Research. South Africa has a rich and diverse marine environment. We have 2,800 kilometers of coastline. We are bordering 3 oceans, the Atlantic, the Indian, and Southern Ocean, and uniquely located at the crossroads of 2 ocean currents, the cold Benguela Current on our west coast and the warmer Agulhas Current on the southeast coast. This creates a very productive and biologically diverse set of ecosystems. South Africa has invested significantly in ocean research and development. We've done this because of building our marine science capability. We've done it to safeguard fishing livelihoods. We've done it to protect our marine biodiversity, to enhance climate resilience, and also to support our growing and sustainable new economy. Today, we are on board the SA Agulhas II. This is one of the investments. SA Agulhas is dedicated to honoring and remembering Miriam Makeba. She is an ice-breaking polar supply and research vessel. She's a beautiful vessel. And perhaps there will be an opportunity for you to take a short tour around the SA Agulhas II. She's primarily tasked with supporting our research stations in Antarctica and two sub-Antarctic islands, Marion Island and Gough Island. She is also serving as a research platform for oceanographic studies and biological studies, providing data and samples for many different scientific projects. Very importantly, she also plays a critical role in deploying and collecting weather buoys or buoys, weather buoys from the ocean, which is an important part of a global effort at predicting weather, so global weather prediction. Our guests today are Minister Dion George, Minister of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment. Minister, it's a real pleasure to be here with you today. And we have Ashley Johnson, who is the Acting Chief Director of Ocean Research and also Specialist Monitoring Services and responsible for the Antarctic Program. I know that both of you have extremely busy times and portfolios and days, so thank you for making the time to be here with us today. Minister, I'm going to start with Ashley as the head of South Africa's Ocean Research program. And just to ask you, Ashley, as the lead of ocean research, please tell us more about South Africa's unique coastline and how this influences our marine biodiversity research.
Thanks, Judy. And thank you for the question. I think you've actually alluded to it in your introduction in terms of just our geographic position and the uniqueness of our geographic position. As you know, on our west coast, we've got this cold ocean current called the Benguela Current, but also a productive fisheries, one of the best fisheries in the world, one of only 4 other such big regions in the world, and being the second biggest of its kind. And on the east coast, then, we've got this almost subtropical, tropical climate, which is brought about because of the Agulhas Current, which is a warm current flowing from the Indian Ocean, and that has its own biodiversity. And then you've got the unique geographic occurrence of these 2 ocean currents meeting on the south. So you've got this tropical biodiversity with a fisheries biodiversity blended and mixed just to the south of our country. So that also gives you this unique biodiversity spectrum, which no other place in the world has. So not only are we unique in terms of our geographic position, but the oceanography that surrounds us makes us even more unique. And when you couple that with this interaction of the Indian Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean, controlling a lot of the climate processes that's being experienced in the Northern Hemisphere, now that puts the cherry on the cake for us in terms of just the uniqueness of our biodiversity and just the ocean space that surrounds us.
Fascinating, really fascinating. And Minister George, as mentioned in the introduction, South Africa has invested significantly in our research capability and in our research infrastructure. Why is this, and how do the people of South Africa benefit from it?
Well, as you heard from Ashley, and he speaks very passionately about what South Africa is capable of doing and where we are located. We are sitting at a very interesting place in world where lots of things happen, and the world needs to know about. Data is a very important thing. So the benefit that South Africa, Africa, and the world is getting from the work that we're doing is we're collecting information that nobody else knows about. And I was recently in Geneva for a conference, and I met with the head of the World Meteorological Organization, and we had a discussion about how important the data, or much more important the data, is becoming, to such an extent that in some countries, the meteorological services report directly to their presidents, because we're aware of the fact, obviously, that the climate is changing. The world is changing very rapidly, and the only way to make good decisions is to collect the information. Because, of course, what we want to do is we want to make science-based decisions. We don't want to go ahead emotionally because then it can make the wrong decision. What we want to do is collect the information. So it is a costly exercise. It obviously costs us money to run a world-class vessel like Agulhas II and to have stations on Antarctica and Gough Island and on the Marion Island. But the fact is, if we didn't have that, we wouldn't know things. And I think that that's the most amazing thing that we have here. We have a world-leading, world-class institution here in South Africa, in the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment, and we are playing a vitally important role in the world as a sensible participant for the whole world at a time when the world is in a difficult space. So that's the enormous value. And I think that one thing, and Ashley and I were discussing it recently, is that we do amazing work. We collect amazing information and we share it wholeheartedly with the whole world. We pay for it and we share it. We don't necessarily advertise enough about the good work that we are doing. It's because we're humble. And, scientists tend to be focused on getting the work done rather than advertising themselves, because I think it's the nature of clever people like scientists. So my role, I see, is I must elevate that to make sure that our scientists are doing this amazing work, get the recognition, and people see that, oh, that's actually what they're doing. But we need to translate it into a language that people can understand, because it's difficult. I mean, I, as the new minister, I hear all these words and I think, oh my word, I can't even pronounce that word, So those are things that we need to do, is we need to collect the data and then debunk that mystery in a way, because it is magical information. So that is the enormous value that we have, and many South Africans don't know. Before I was the minister, I did not know. We count the fish. I didn't notice. I didn't know a whole lot of things, but I do now. And I realize how important it is that we tell everybody that we do it.
And to what extent are we working with the rest of the African continent in doing some of that research? Is there some collaborative research? Is there some collaborative programs that we've been working on?
Yes, absolutely. We work very well with our SADC partners, and we also work very well with the African Union, because obviously, as Africans, we are very proud of the fact that we have got world-class capability. Is that I think there's many times people feel a little pessimistic. They think, well, it's a troubled continent, etc. Well, yes, it's got troubles, as does everybody else in the world. But the fact is that when we collaborate together, and we do, we are able to predict our weather, we're able to forecast it, and we're able to feed in internationally into those networks. So also, obviously, South Africa, located where we are at the tip of Africa, we are the only African nation with a base on Antarctica for the whole year, 24 hours a day. So we're always there. And I think that is also a source of pride for the rest of our African colleagues who know that one of our colleagues is busy doing this amazing work and everybody's benefiting from it. And there's also, we're working more closely on it. I'm very keen to see a lot more exchanges and collaboration, etc. It's already done. Scientists talk to one another all the time. Universities talk to each other. South Africa's got very good universities, as does the rest of Africa. And there's a lot of collaboration going on. But I think that those are things that we together as proud Africans can actually share with the world. So we are very much animated about the collaboration, and more is possible.
Amazing. Thank you. Ashley, could you share with us some insights into some of the most recent breakthroughs or important findings and achievements?
Yeah, obviously do that. And I'm taking a leaf out of Minister's page that is just read to you. And I'm going to start with biodiversity as an example. Very recently, there was an article that went around about a discovery of a worm, if you call it that, in our oceans many years ago, which was the key to unlocking chemotherapy. So the question that we have to ask ourselves is, how many other of those gems are not there that we don't know about? So as part of our biodiversity program, we are doing a systematic look at every area around our coast. What is the DNA? What is their biochemical makeup, and so forth, so that we know what potential lies in our ocean. How many other cures are not there that we don't know about? So that's one of our big programs that we do in collaboration with universities around the country and international. It's an international effort. Um, when we think about just where we are from a climate and oceanographic perspective, South Africa, and not many people again know that we've run a a line of instruments that run from South Africa to the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. And it is measuring how much heat, how much salt is transported from our waters into the northern hemisphere. So it's the only such system in the South Atlantic. So the question is, what's the importance of all this? And when you think about the interconnectedness of the ocean and how it derives a lot of the climate processes, which is something which we trying to understand, that line of instruments tells us exactly how much heat and salt is exchanged. And again, why is that important? If too little heat is transferred to the north, the northern hemisphere experiences a very cold winter. What happens then? They eat. What happens then? Oil prices go up. And in the end, it affects us. So that exchange from the Indian Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean that happens on our doorstep actually controls economy, not only climate. And we sort of the pulse of what is happening in the world climate. And it's something that we're quite proud of. And I think so many other nations would love to be in our position. And that's why they do this collaborative research with us so that we can actually try and understand exactly what we're doing. Another thing that has emerged within recently is microplastics. It's on everybody's tongues. And one of our scientists in our unit is actually one of the principal investigators to look at microplastics around the world as part of the United Nations effort to look at what kind of microplastic this is. Because as you know, plastics degrade with time and eventually they form these small particles, almost the size of plankton, which is what fish eat. So the fish are misidentified plastic or plankton. That's how plastics get ingested into fish. But it's not just the plastics. There are pathogens that then sits on those microplastics that the fish eat that makes the fish sick, makes us sick. So she's developing a method that would be used internationally as a standard method for wanting to know where does this plastic come from, or what is on this plastic. But more importantly, together with our partner universities like UNISA and University of Northwest, we're trying to identify where is the source of that plastic. Because in the end, you can then pinpoint exactly who the producer of the plastic was. And that for us is a very, very important concept around just stopping unnecessary plastic pollution that we have. I think also we are one of the only African countries that have a carbon chemistry program. That is, how does the ocean and the atmosphere exchange carbon? Why is that important? It's the climate issue. Us pumping all of this carbon into the atmosphere. We're trying to find out just how much of that carbon is absorbed, but what are the consequences of the ocean having to absorb too much carbon because we pumped so much into the atmosphere. Then you get into issues of ocean acidification. And we run a massive program, not only around our coast, but into the Southern Ocean, down to Antarctica, to see where are the hotspots for that carbon absorption and for ocean acidification. As you can think, ocean acidification has an impact on biodiversity. If the water is too acidic, it's going to impact your biodiversity and that whole life cycle. So those are just some of the key things which people in our organization, but with partnerships, are focusing on various market.
Everything is so interconnected, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Even marine heat waves, yes, are starting to become major issue of concern.
Yeah. And then again, you link it back to your climate change issue, because the hotter the atmosphere, the warmer the ocean. Because the ocean also has to absorb back heat. Because that's the role of oceans, historically, has been to absorb whatever is excessive in the atmosphere, to restore balance. But it's losing that battle. It is losing that battle. And as much as it's trying to absorb all the carbon that we've pumped into the atmosphere, it is becoming acidic, trying to restore that balance. And that's something that we need to guard against in this whole climate debate that we're having.
And Minister, you have recently launched the Climate Change Coastal Adaptation Response Plan. Tell us a little bit about that and how it links up with some of these major climate change impacts that we're starting to feel around our coastline.
Yes, absolutely. I think the key things in climate change is you've got to look at mitigation and you need to look at adaptation. And of course, you have to add the means of implementation, which is the finance. What we're finding now is that because things, as you say, they do seem to be speeding up, and our ability to mitigate may well not be enough, which then means we need to focus on adaptation. And that's the key thing on our coastal plan. It's basically what we need to do is to look ahead, basically say, well, what is it that's going to happen in the future? We know what's going to happen. We know that along our coastline, it's going to get stormier. You know, it's getting wetter in the north of the Eastern Cape and KwaZulu-Natal and Lesotho. The rest of our country is getting drier. And what we also know is that people have built settlements relatively close to the ocean. And so then the question is, what does that mean for us in terms of responding to this? We're already seeing, for example, in KwaZulu-Natal, when we had the terrible storms, quite a while ago now, we've still not been able to build the roads back because there's not enough money to do that. So I think one of the key pieces of the plan is to make sure that people can be sensitized to the fact that we actually are now entering into a different phase. We don't need to be frightened by it, but we need to be mindful that we need to adapt to it. So that's the one thing in terms of the spatial planning, the developments that happen on the ocean, etc. And that people need to understand is that there's a reason why we have the rules. There's always been a rule, don't build within certain at a distance from the ocean. There were good reasons for it. Now the reasons are much clearer to everybody because what's happening is that their houses are now actually getting into difficulty. I was recently in Longavan, actually, where we were looking at, I think things are called groins, where they put sand into the ocean or sandbags, and then mitigated to a degree. But they'd been eroded over time. And what's happening now is when the tide comes in and when the wind is blowing, the ocean is actually coming now over the road into people's houses. And then some plots are now unlivable. And so the question is, what do you do? I mean, it's not too late. And you can't actually hold back the sea unless you do a lot of things, i.e. build boardwalks, etc. So I think that that's one of the key things. Also, the other thing is to say, well, if we're going to be together in sync, we need to have the different spheres of government participating. The Climate Change Act, which was now almost it's not a year old now. Not all of the parts of it are in place yet, but that talks specifically to dovetailing with our coastal plan, which is part of that, is that the different spheres of government need to work together. So the municipalities have a role to play. They all need to have a plan. And then, of course, provinces and, of course, national. So we, as the custodian of that, we need to make sure that we can actually assist. Now we know that the municipalities battle to provide basic services. So then when you think in that scheme, how on earth do you then get a workable climate adaptation plan when you're battling with the basics? And so people do argue and they say, well, you know what, are we trying to be too much? You know, are we trying to be in a first world space when we're not there yet? Now, of course, the answer is absolutely not. We are very much capable of adapting to this and responding, but it is very important, firstly, people know about it. So that's also part of the plan to make sure that people understand what we're talking about. And that starts from young. You know, it's important. People must know what is climate change all about. And then it's about engaging with municipalities so that we can assist in getting it done. Because if we don't respond, what's going to happen is that many of the communities that are along the coast are going to feel the impact very heavily. And then what happens to those communities? Already our country is 91% of our country is water distressed. So what does that mean then? If the country is getting drier, how do we make sure we get water to our people? That's part of the thing we need to think on. So it's integrated, and as Ashley was saying, and I mean, I learn something new every day in my job at Shui. But from him, I learned is that we all think that there's oceans and they've got different names. There's actually only one ocean. The different parts of it have different names, but they're all connected to one another. Now, of course, I think, it seems obvious, but you don't really think about it because you're not an expert. So that plan talks to the integrated nature of everything. As Ashley was saying about, you've got the oceans eating up here and then it's impacting in Europe, etc. It's fundamentally important, our ocean. I think we've completely neglected that idea of like, oh, well, we polluted, nobody's really going to care. Well, it matters enormously. So it's also cleaning it up, making sure that we can manage the pollution, etc. So those are things that we must have in place. But crucially, South Africa is very good at planning. We plan and we have consultants and we have a beautiful glossy thing. We are not so good at implementation. And that, I think, is very important as a department. And me as a minister in charge of the department, I'm very keen on saying, right, let's implement things. Maybe we can't get everything done, but we must actually do that because else we aren't actually going to make progress. So we have a very, very well put together plan by very clever people. Crucially now, we're rolling it out. So when, for example, we look at regulations, we just recently issued the start of a process to ban the microplastic beads. Now, who knew these little pieces of plastic are in sub-cosmetics, toothpaste? I was, in fact, on the vessel when there was an experiment done. I don't know how far down it went, but anyway, there was water that was brought up from deep down in the ocean, the Indian Ocean. And there were microplastics in there. Yeah. I was amazed. I was like astounded. And as Ashley says, is that we as scientists that are capable and are working on this project now where you could take this tiny little piece of plastic and you can identify where it came from. And that really is helpful because now when we're talking about the plastics treaty in the world, we didn't get over the line at all. It was was not successful in Geneva, but we will keep trying. But what I've said is South Africa will continue anyway, so that I extended producer responsibility. People can take responsibility for that. So we know who made the plastic and we know that, okay, he was responsible all the way through. And also we must move on single-use plastics as well. I intend to do that soon as well. It's not so easy because there's complexities. We must do that. So I think the key things we identify, let's cut back on these plastics that are getting into the ocean. Let's work more towards using, reusing, getting away from it. That is the way. But you have to start somewhere. And I think we've been a bit behind the curve. Like if you look at Europe, for example, obviously we're a developing economy country. If you look at Europe, they are much further ahead of the curve than we are because they had a lot longer to practice on it. But I was recently there and it was hot. It was not African heat that was heat. This tow truck was like a magnifying glass on us or something. It was very bad, that heat. And the people in Europe are getting very nervous about it because this is not normal. We know heat, but we know African. It's kind of more gentle in some way. But those are the things that are gripping the world's imagination now. And our coastal plan ties into that because, of course, we're very much animated by the fact of we are an African country, we are a developing economy country. We must find our own solutions. Because if we're going to wait for people to give us money and wait for people to do it for us, never going to happen. We're basically got to do it on our own, and we're very capable. And so that is the base of the plan, and there have to be others. So in the terms of the Climate Change Act, every single municipality must have a plan. That's hard. So we're going to have to assist. Every province must have one. We're going to have to assist on that. But crucially from the national level, and certainly the South African government is very animated by that, as a government of national unity, we are 100% aligned on the fact that we have this situation. We must then tackle it to the absolute best of our ability, because it's going to show up in the future. Those that do nothing, they're going to pay a high price. What we want to do in our department is to make sure that as the climate starts to change and things become more difficult, and they may well be, we want our people to have the best shot, to make sure that we force every South African, every single person, no matter where they live, where they come from, every South African must have the best opportunity to maybe adapt to the world that is changing around it. And I think it's very much doable. And again, I think we're ahead of our curve if you look at many other nations, that we might be behind a lot, but we're also ahead of a lot. And I think that is the responsibility that lies very squarely with this department. And it's rising to the occasion. I mean, you heard Ashley talk about the amazing experiments that we are doing, things we're finding. And everywhere I go in the world, everybody does say to me, you have a world-class fisheries department. And I say, oh, well, thank you very much. I'm delighted to know that, because it's something that makes us all very proud. So as South Africans, we can, in fact, be very proud of the fact that the problem is here, we're measuring it, we are making plans to adapt to it, and then we will activate it. That's the crucial piece.
And, as you say, we're in a different stage. It's almost as though the transition is becoming more urgent. The transition to climate resilience is becoming more urgent. And as our blue economy is growing, and as our resources, our fishery resources are being impacted, community livelihoods are affected. And it's like, it really is an amplification. Climate change is really amplifying many of the challenges that exist. So very exciting, and it's a very exciting work that you are doing. If I may just continue on a slightly different track and go back to the work that is happening in Antarctica, Marion Island, Gough Island, such important research work. You have researchers that are based very far from home in extremely isolated situations. I'm sure they run into problems and challenges on occasion, and perhaps more than on one occasion. And I'm wondering whether you could share with us some of the difficulties in working in such isolated spaces, and what is in place to support the research teams.
Well, yes, as you say, I mean, when I became a minister and I was aware now we have people there all the time, I thought to myself, gosh, it's something I couldn't do. I would not be able to go to a place that is so isolated and spend a lot of time there. You have to be a special kind of a person to do that. And we're very fortunate because we do have special people. And we've had a number of expeditions that have gone very successfully, and we've got one currently also very successfully. Now, of course, what has to happen is before people go, a lot of people think like, I can go and be isolated and it'll be fine. But it's only when you actually get there that you realize, gosh, this is actually very rough. So I do think that it's something that, it's not always predictable. But I think that the high caliber of the people that we select, they go through a very rigorous process to see, are they psychologically robust enough, etc., etc. But of course, when people arrive there, they might find, they're responding in a way that they didn't expect to be responding to this environment. So we do have very sophisticated support on our teams. So, for example, we have a group of people, psychologically trained people, psychologists, and people that understand social dynamics, etc. Before the team goes, there are exercises that are done to build the team as much as you can. And of course, it takes time when they're there, but they're always in touch with the base, and they're always in touch with the support team. So at this very moment, I mean, I'm sure everybody is aware of the fact that there was a complexity in the beginning of this year's expedition, but it was very well managed because the team has climbed over that hurdle. They're performing very well, and it was good to see that our team back here in South Africa was able to support the team as well as they could. Also, very importantly, there are other nations over there as well that have bases everywhere. And of course, in terms of the treaty that they signed, is that everybody can visit everybody's base. And of course, I've always said to all my counterparts, if there's ever a problem that anybody has there, we will help one another. And I think that obviously depends on what the weather looks like. But we're very mindful of the fact that it's an alien environment. It's a very stressful environment. I mean, if you just sit back for a moment and imagine what is it like to go to, and that I've been to Antarctica, but not for very long. It was a very short visit, but I went, and it's cold, obviously, and it looks very different. It looks like a different planet, and it's very disorientating. And then, of course, if you're going to spend a long time there, of course, you've got family at home and you've got things happening. The world is moving along. So, and of course, in this modern age of communication, the amount of information that comes through. I mean, even us here living in Cape Town, you think, golly, the world is getting a bit crazy. So it can be probably a little bit disorientating. But certainly the work that comes out of the Antarctica, and also this expedition, has been really, really good work. And I think that that's the focus, is that the scientists and the people that are animated enough to spend time, and that's a sacrifice to a degree, that they see the fruits of their work. We also did find that one of the issues that was raised was that, we didn't maybe send enough washing powder to Antarctica. Now, of course, these are things of dear. Yes, you do. You learn these things. But of course, we are very fortunate that we do have capacity. So as soon as the weather is okay, we will be able to go and do a drop over there and drop off the washing powder or something. So, but I think it does require a lot of maturity. And I think that also when people come back from Antarctica, I mean, it had a life-changing experience in that they've been in a place, they've seen things. And some people actually go on several expeditions there. So it is very special because we don't know what the world's going to look like in the future. Maybe one day, maybe not in my lifetime, but we'll have to see. You never know. Antarctica may well get warmer, may get warmer very quickly, for example. It's already parts of it are breathe. And so are we going to end up one day having permanent settlements there? And then what does that look like? So we must make sure, and South Africa is ahead of the curve. Ashley is also part of that team where we look at the Antarctic treaties and say, well, okay, let's think ahead here. Because, what happens if it starts to get quite populated? How do you manage biosecurity, for example? And there's lots of tourism and all of that. So it is a fascinating unfolding place. And the people that have the benefit and privilege of going to spend some time there in the way that it is now, it may be changed forever in future. So I will be going there actually at the end of the year if all goes to plan, to the base, and I'm looking forward to it. So that should be about November time. But it is truly fascinating, I must say.
Beautiful. So, Minister, really, you are building a team of dedicated ocean scientists that are working in very interesting and important areas of research, ocean research on Antarctica, at Marion Island, at Gough even, I'm sure. I would like to ask both of you if you could elaborate a little bit on what is in there for young students? What is there for young researchers? How can we inspire young researchers, incoming researchers, to join this growing and dedicated team?
You? Okay, all right. I actually would add on. Yeah, I think it was interesting. Before we went on the expedition on the ship, I got on it in Durban, and then we sailed to Cape Town. And I was on the ship and I saw a number of experiments. It was very exciting. But before we left, we had a lot of people coming to an exhibition. And, there were various things that we were showing, etc., like sharks and all sorts. And I was very excited by all the young people that were there, because I think, firstly, they need to know that we have this capacity, that South Africa does these things, that there are these opportunities. Because what do young people actually want? They want to do something fulfilling with their lives. So as a government, what I believe we need to be doing is we need to be creating the environment that everybody can become everything they're capable of becoming. So when a young person or a student comes along to one of the expeditions or the exhibitions we're having before we go on the expedition, and they have a look and they see, gosh, look at all this amazing things. Where do I see myself in this picture? And if they see themselves in that picture, that is a great place to start. Because what we want to do is create those opportunities. Obviously, there are a limited amount of spaces in government, for example, for jobs, but the ecosystem around it, the ocean economy, the unbelievable opportunities that everybody has in the ocean space, not only in South Africa, but across the world. And I think that's the key thing. So one of the key things that I would like to see happening is that we're inspiring our younger generation to know that we're doing these things, to know some people came here, they didn't even know they had been to the ocean before. They came from our country and here they are. So to show what we have, so people can appreciate the amazing things we have, and then maybe in the future they see themselves some way, maybe studying marine biology or becoming some kind of a, I don't know, explorer of some kind, because there's so much to find. Also looking after all the marine animals that we must protect, because there's so many of them, we're mega diverse. So I think that's the amazing thing of having the, if you want to call it a natural asset. Because when I go to other places in the world and I speak to other environment ministers, they actually say, we envy you because you're the minister from South Africa and you have got this amazing biodiversity, not only on land, but also in the ocean. At least they know it's there. And I think, yes, absolutely, we do. And then how do we leverage land? How do we get every single young person in our country to firstly know that they own a piece of it, that there is opportunities for them in it, and they will love it because then they will protect it. Then you win. And I think we're heading in that direction.
From coastal to inland policies. Ajay.
I think, ministers covered everything. The only addition that I have is to say that you don't necessarily have to become a scientist to be involved in oceans. If you love oceans, you can become a lawyer that's interested in, an engineer that's interested in, a social scientist that's interested in. So we don't want young people to think only of ocean science in that way, but the ocean actually is an opportunity for a whole host of other careers, that it does not necessarily have to stop at ocean sciences. And I think then the world's yours. Yeah.
Minister Ashley, thank you for a really inspiring discussion on the Minister's Couch.
Thank you very much. It was wonderful to be here.
Great.
Thanks so much.